Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be diving into one of the most important and honestly one of the best additions to Microsoft Entra, which is tenant governance now in preview. If you manage multiple tenants, work in MSP environments, or just want better visibility and control across your Entra landscape, this feature is going to make your life a whole lot better, and we're going to dive into it in this video. So, what is tenant governance? Tenant governance is Microsoft's way to centralize, discover, classify, and manage all the tenants associated with your organization. Think of it as kind of a control plane that finally answers the question, how many tenants do we actually have? Who created them? And what are they doing? It's a great way to reveal shadow IT and to get a better glimpse of what is happening within your organization on a tenant level. Before this, tenant sprawl was basically like the Wild West, but now we actually get some structure, which is super exciting to see. Okay, here's why this matters. Organizations often end up with dozens of tenants, whether it's production, development, or citizen made. Proof of concepts, partner tenants, shadow IT tenants, and the list goes on. Until now, there was no way to track them. And from a security perspective, unmanaged tenants are a blind spot that can not allow visibility, which is a security risk. Tenant governance gives you discovery of all associated tenants, ownership and classification of those tenants so you can classify them, lifecycle management so you can see the lifecycle from start to finish, policy enforcement, visibility into risk and compliance for those tenants, and much, much more. And in this video, I am going to be showing you how all of those things work, and I'm going to be giving you a demonstration. So now that you understand what tenant governance is all about, let's hop on the computer and I'm going to show you exactly how it works and give you a sneak peek. All right, everyone, welcome back. So now that I'm in Entra, if you actually go and scroll down here in the Entra ID blade, you'll see the new tenant governance preview. Click on that, and now we are into our tenant governance blade, our new tenant governance area. If you have previews enabled, you'll see this. If not, you will have to enable preview. However, in this case, I already have it good and already have it enabled, so we're already good to go. So you can see that we have a few options here. So we have related agents, governing agents, some templates, monitors, and configuration management, and then settings and some other things here that you may be familiar with. When you want to govern a tenant, so this is the thing, and this is what you need to know about tenant governance. Imagine, if you will, you have two tenants, okay? You have two tenants. You have yours, and then you have someone else's, or you have a related one, okay? One that may be an employee created. So what it's going to do is actually it's going to look for signals that indicate that your tenant or their tenant has interacted in some way, whether it's through an app, through a sign-in, or what have you. It's going to find those relationships and it's going to say, hey, this person or this tenant seems awfully familiar to your tenant. Do you want to send a invite or a request to govern so that way you have control of that tenant? So before we can do that governance, we actually need to go and see what tenants are actually related to us. So if I click into the related tenants blade here, and I'm probably gonna have to do some blurring out because there is some tenant IDs. However, you can see that this is what it picked up on. So you can see here that you have the name of the so-called tenant, the ID, the discovery signal. In this case, it's multi-tenant applications. And you can see when it was updated and any inbound admin sign-ins, app sign-ins. If we click on here, for example, you can actually go down and see the details. So you have like a nice little overview here that gives the information, shows you what signals, and also gives a governance status. If we click on request to govern, I'm not going to do that here. However, that will actually send a request to that tenant to say, hey, I noticed that we're the same. I want to govern you. And they can approve or deny and what have you. So if we click on view all signals, you can actually go in and see what signals and what the reasoning for the relation is. And it will give you based off magnitude. And this is for privacy because obviously if it is another tenant and it's maybe not related, although it probably is, we want to protect the user's privacy. So that's why you see that. If you go in relationships, so here you can see all the invitations and requests you've had to that tenant. Pretty self-explanatory. And there you go. All right, so now that we know how we can find the related tenants within Entra, now let's look at the governed tenants and governing tenants. So if we click on governed tenants, this is where we can get a bird's eye view of the tenants that we govern. We can see what sent requests we've had sent to other tenants to be able to govern them, and any received invitations that we may have gotten from other tenants so that they can govern us. Now let's talk about tenant management. So if we go into the templates here, for example, you can see that we already have a default template, and this is set by Microsoft. However, you can also set templates, governance templates, so that when you govern another tenant, what this does is that it gives it a set level of configurations to say, hey, I want you to be governed based off of these parameters, based off these configurations that I have. So to do that, all I have to do is press new template. I would enter in. So for example, I'm just going to say test here and then hit next. And then from here, you can also add assignments, add delegated administrators to this template. You can also add applications from your tenant. And then, of course, you can review said template before you deploy it. Now, let's talk about probably one of my favorite things in this whole new preview, and that is the ability to deploy monitors. So you may be asking yourself, well, what is a monitor exactly? So what a monitor does is that when you govern an organization, when you govern a tenant, it will actually check for configuration drift, which is very common in organizations that have multiple tenants, especially if you are configuring things all the time or you're changing things. Configuration drift can present a security risk because of the fact that you may have something configured, secured on your side, but what about the other tenants you manage? Well, the monitors allow you to periodically compare the actual state of these sources and also to detect any drifts in that baseline. So to create a new monitor, all we do is press new monitor. Here you can see I kind of went ahead and did some things with it. So right now I set it so that the audit logs, you can be able to access those and read query audit logs. You can set whatever permissions you need. And then I put in Teams Reader. You can really set that to whatever you need. So up here, you would actually upload any JSON, upload any of those JSON baselines. And what it will do is that it will compare the uploaded JSON to what is actually happening in the tenant. So if it detects that drift, what ends up happening then is that it will actually say what was detected and what drifts happened. So that way you can take action before the drift takes action on that tenant, right? So the final two things I will show you is the configuration management permissions and the tenant governance settings. So you may have noticed in the monitors here, the reason why I was able to put audit logs as well as the Teams Reader is because you actually need to configure these ahead of time. So if you go into configuration management permissions, you can see here that I've already added that permission. You can add additional ones by clicking the add permissions button and then finding the role that you require or the permission that you require. And the same thing for the Entra roles. In this case, I have Teams Reader, and you can go in and you can search for any roles that are available. And then in turn, when you go to create a new monitor and you go to create application permissions and Entra roles, that's when it will show up. If it's not there, you will not be able to find these roles here. You actually need to configure them first down here. Finally, I want to show you something that's also very important for you to know. So invitation settings by default is set to disabled. And the reason for this is because this allows for other tenants to send governance invitations to your current tenant. Right now, it is disabled. It's disabled by default. You can enable it if you want your tenant. Say you are working in a child tenant and you want it to be able to transition, or you want to be able to govern it from a parent tenant. This is when you would enable it. Otherwise, I'd leave this disabled. If this is your master and then your child tenants, then you can click this to be enabled and then govern them. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, favorite, and click that bell notification so you're notified whenever any new Entra news or information drops, or anything in the Microsoft and security realm. Click that bell so you're notified. Thank you very much. Have an awesome day. Have a good one.